All right, let's jump right in. We're taking a deep dive into a pretty heated election. In Ondo State, Nigeria, it's election day. And we've got this really interesting article from Vanguard News.
Yeah, they're like the top news source in Nigeria.
Yeah, they're like the go-to for reliable news.
Wow.
And they managed to snag an interview with the Zenith Labor Party candidate, Dr. Abbas Mimiko.
Wow, talk about front row seats to all the action.
Wow.
Zenith Labor Party,
Right.
or ZOP as it's often called.
Oh.
They're a major player in Ondo State politics we've had
Okay.
history of.
Yeah.
Shaking things up.
Oh, yeah.
And to get this interview on election day itself, that's just pure gold for understanding what's going on.
It's like we're getting a behind-the-scenes look at how these elections actually work. And Dr. Mimiko, he doesn't hold back. He is super confident about President Tinubu's neutrality in this election. He actually says, and I quote, "I have supreme confidence in President Bola Tinubu that he will not be partial." Quote, "He will be just and neutral, irrespective of his party affiliation." But here's where it gets really interesting. Dr. Mimiko is the brother of a former Ondo State governor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's got to create some interesting dynamics, right?
For sure.
The system is not perfect. Things are not working. It took more than 10 minutes to capture me. Who is the candidate of the PDP? So all of us here, you can see the drama. And a lot of complaints here and there. If INEC cannot successfully organize election in one state, just one state, then certainly you must know that we are running to anarchy.
Certainly, you must have been hearing reports virtually
everywhere. It's not even me who is contesting the election can experience this up to 10 minutes before I could be allowed to cast my vote. A lot of women will just let me go back to my house. I think it's deliberate on the part of INEC, on the part of the rec. And we have said this several times. We don't trust Barrister Olatoyin Abalola that this woman cannot be fair. The system is compromised. I have series of calls today, and I make calls to everybody. People are complaining, both buying. People are not working, even when it is just a tools of, ringing tools for them. The ringing tools for them, but it's not even working. It's a very shameful exercise, and I think Nigerians should just call on the chairman of Electoral Commission.
Your assessment of the security situation, please.
Professor Mamadou Yaku. It's not if you cannot do the job, it's just honorably resign. He should resign. This is embarrassing. It's totally compromised. You have seen it yourself. Totally compromised, and it's very sad. Nigeria is going to a state where people are an idiot, an entity. Because you are in a ruling party, it becomes what you want to become. Under Professor Jega, INEC was almost getting to that level of international standards. But your people go has drawn us back. This is sad. This is sad, and Nigerians are not happy.
Sir, so far so good. How can you explain the conduct of this exercise right from accreditation to this process, sir, to this particular point in time?
Yes, like you rightly said, we had Unit 05 at Obinla, Ugbo Ward 4 in Laje local government area of Ondo State, where I have just casted my vote, and other eligible voters also on queue casting their votes. The exercise has been so peaceful and so calm. I also want to commend the INEC officials complying to the rules of the game, doing the accreditation, and then before you can vote. And also we have the security agencies on ground to protect everyone that has come out to vote. So the exercise has been so peaceful, and I think from what I'm hearing from other locations too, so far it's been peaceful. But I can only be at my unit at a time. So not that I know what is happening all over the state yet, but information at my disposal and some other locations that I have information about, it's been peaceful and calm.
So over the years, many people have expressed skepticism about the integrity test conducted by INEC, who is the electoral overseer. That do you think INEC has the capacity to deliver the voice of the people at these polls in Ondo State at this particular point in time, sir?
Who else will have the capacity to give, not INEC? It's the INEC. So yes, and so far for us in Ondo State, our elections have been credible and transparent, and this will not be different. This will not be different. For example, in 2016, after the governorship election, nobody went to the tribunal to challenge the result. It's the same INEC. In 2020, we had, when I became the deputy governor, ran together with the late governor, may he rest in peace. The election was peaceful and credible. Even when the opposition went to court, the issue that was challenged at the time was not about the credibility and transparency of the election. It's about the way and manner that our form was submitted when it has to do with the man, the chairman, caretaker committee chairman who signed our form. So the issue that they were arguing at the court at the time was not about the credibility of the election. So if we have, two in a row, the first one there was no challenge in the tribunal, the second one, the main plea at the tribunal wasn't, it has nothing to do with the credibility and transparency of the election. So therefore, like I said, this very one will not be different. So I believe INEC is delivering in Ondo State and also in Nigeria. They are the only body we have and that can do the job. So there's no any other body you want to set up to do that other than INEC. So they have the capacity. Yes, there could be improvement because records can always be broken. They can improve on their turnaround time in terms of arrival at locations early enough, and then the whole process it can be better, because there's nothing in this world that is static. There's always room for improvement. If you're talking about room for improvement, yes, there can still be room for improvement. But in terms of capacity and capability to deliver, why not? They have been delivering anyway, so they will need to deliver.
There have been pockets of complaints about the functionality, the optimal functionality of beavers. Do you think it could in any way affect the outcome of voter confidence in that regard?
Well, it's a technology that has been put in place for accreditation. For me, it was one hand. The moment I presented my PVC, it went through. So I don't know of any other, but it went through immediately. It brought out my details and my picture, and then, and I was accredited. It may be in some location because of network, because of some locations that are into the hinterland. Yes, they might be experiencing such, but I think they have improved on that as well. So if it's malfunctioning, definitely it will affect the process in terms of turnaround time. But otherwise, I think it's a good piece of technology to ascertain the personality that is coming to vote, the eligibility of the voters. That's it.
Thank you so much for having us on. You heard it all from the Ondo State Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa, who has expressed confidence about the process leading to this particular time, and he believes that at the end of the day, the voice of the people of Ondo State will tell, and the best man for the job will be elected from Ilaje local government here in Ondo State.
So I want to ask, how has the voter turnout been so far? Are there any reports of delays in opening polling units or issues with BVAS?
Yes, we were told before this election that the exercise was going to start at 8 in the morning, but unfortunately, in several polling units that were visited, voting did not start at that particular time. But if you look around me here, we have about 2 polling units in this school within the premises of St. Stephen's Anglican Primary School Ijowu or Ijomu Akure here in the state capital. We have 2 polling units here, and the turnout of voters here is relatively encouraging compared to what you have in other polling units around town. It has not really been that massive turnout of voters around town, but here we can see people waiting patiently to take part in the exercise. So we still don't know how this will pan out, if this will continue to the end of the exercise or things will change for the better before the close of exercise. We are still keeping a tab on development, and at the end of everything, we may be able to say for sure if indeed the voters, turnout is better compared to what we had in 2020. Let me tell you, Ruth, it may interest you to know that about more than 2 million people, precisely 2,500,000 people registered for this election, but only 5.6% of those registered actually picked up their PVC, and those are the ones that are taking part in this election. So you will not expect that massive crowd you will see in other parts of the country during an election like this because of the number of voters that have picked up their PVC and are taking part in this exercise. But so far, the exercise has been peaceful around town, with security operatives, comporting themselves in manners that one will expect. There have not been any report of any, violence in those places I have touched. I don't know of other places, but the places I have covered, have not heard of any report of violence in any of these places that I have touched. Okay, we are still going around town to see how the exercise is taking shape around town. I've seen, independent observers taking a look or monitoring this exercise too, and they have 1 or 2 things to say about the exercise. I know after now you have to speak with one of them, and then you'll be able to hear directly from him what he has been able to observe about this governorship election. Talking about security operatives in town, we have too many of them around Akure, the state capital. You remember the Inspector General of Police told us that they were deploying 30,000 policemen for this election, but it is funny or ridiculous to know that 30,000 policemen will monitor an election where you have less than 2,000 people voting. It appears like a waste of resources, because an election is not a war. An election is not crisis. We just monitored what happened in the United States of America in their last election, where everybody just went about their daily activities and they took out time to just go and participate in the exercise. So for me, really, I don't see why we need to now have over security, so to say, in town. Everywhere you go around town, you see military men in their camouflage taking strategic positions around town, stopping vehicles. On our way coming down here, we saw a group of policemen there arresting bike men. They've arrested quite a number of them. I hope we'll be able to get the visuals before the end of this exercise. Ruth.
Okay, it's interesting that you mentioned the issue of security, because I was just about to ask you that. What about the election materials? Are they being distributed on time across the state, or have there been any complaints about missing or incomplete materials?
There have not been any complaints in that regard. As a matter of fact, you want to commend some of these electoral officials for arriving their point of duty early enough. Like I told you, the voters were reluctant in coming out, but the electoral officials in places that I have seen, they came early enough to set up, their materials waiting for the voters. We have not had any issue of, lateness in election materials getting to the point where they are going to be used. So the exercise is still going on peacefully, and we are still waiting to see if there will be any complaint as regards what you have just raised.
Okay. Another question I'd like to ask, are voters facing challenges like long queues or voter intimidation? Have there been any noticeable instances of voter buying or inducement attempts?
Vote buying and voters inducement keeps taking different shape and form in every election in Nigeria. So usually you may not get to see them at the polling unit here, but the politicians have always devised means of, reaching out to the voters to induce them. Remember, it was in Ekiti that we had Edibo Esebe. That means come and vote so that you make money to go and prepare a pot of soup. If you remember that particular election, that year, that was novel. That time, they would just go around town and shout Edibo Esebe, and it was like, it was a new thing then. But in other elections, we have also seen different forms of voters inducement. In this election, for an instance, voters inducement, we have always seen it even in the build-up to this election with different kinds of gifts and even monetary inducement to voters during campaigns as late as yesterday. But today, we have not heard of any case of anybody being arrested going around with cash like we had in the last election in this state, where somebody was arrested with large cache of cash. But today, we've not seen any of such. So everything is still going on peacefully. As soon as we have any information as regards that, trust me, I'll get it across to you.
Okay, that's good to know. Let me ask you on the international level, what are domestic and international observers reporting about this process so far? Are there any concerns about the transparency or integrity of the process?
Yes, there have been mixed concerns from independent observers. I hope you will get time to speak with the president of the Albino Foundation, that's Mr. J. Kepele. He's around there, he's around here, and he will come before the camera any moment from now so that you'll be able to hear directly from them. But other people that I've interacted with, it's a kind of, mixed expressions. Perhaps I should just speak with one of them for 1 or 2 minutes before you speak with Mr. J. Kepele. Can I have you on camera, sir? So can you tell me your name and what you are doing in this election?
Okay, my name is Beke Apere.
Okay, are you an independent observer?
Yes.
So what have you observed?
Yes, so far so good. The election has been peaceful, and some places we've been to, the turnout is low, but they conducted themselves well, and the election is going peacefully. But like you said, there's a lot of vote buying going behind the cameras, which you cannot see. But some of us will understand when vote buying is taking place, and there's a lot of vote buying going on. But the thing is that it's only in some, I think we have recorded in, one of our men called us in one area that they caught somebody who was doing vote buying. So we've not able to confirm very well if, we don't know who is the person doing the vote buying. But like I said, it will be very difficult to, mostly this vote buying, it will be difficult for you to shy away this vote buying, because even if you don't see the person in physical cash, they do the vote buying behind and tell the people to come and vote. And once you vote, they have a way of giving signals to justify who they voted for. So it's something we need to be educating people not to engage in vote buying. It's not a day work. We need to keep on preaching about this vote buying so that it will stop. And I know by the special grace, the way INEC is trying very well in the process. So far, the process has been free and fair. What we have seen, no violence, nobody has snatched any ballot box or come with talk to come and beat any person. So we commend the process so far for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So you are directly from him. I hope you have time to speak directly with Mr. Ekpele, who is here with us.
Okay, is he there? Is Mr. Ekpele there?
Do you want me to bring him on right now?
Well, you can bring him on right now, because I want to address the issue of the vote buying that the gentleman just mentioned.
Okay, this is Mr. J. Kepele, and is the president of the Albino Foundation. He has also been monitoring this election, not just today, but even in the build-up to this election. Can you tell us, what are your observations so far?
Well, my focus has always been in the inclusivity of the entire process, and so far so good. One of the greatest concerns that we expressed even in our previous pre-election statement was the abysmal number of persons with disability declared by INEC for this election, 1,785. That's not acceptable. I don't think that is truly a reflection of the participation of persons with disability in this process. Now, I will not particularly blame it on INEC. there are some circumstances leading to that abysmal number. Number one is the issue of persons with disability at the point of registration not declaring that they are persons with disability. Number two is the people who took their information during registration not asking, even when they see physical disability. So we do have a problem with data. If we're going to be guided to ensure that there will be inclusivity in the process, in the electoral process in general, we must invest in data. Oba, you just spoke of vote buying and all that. You know, politicians are smart. I think they've changed strategy. There is vote buying. We've even seen some of them, even as you're conducting this interview. They have devised a means of presenting coupon. So you see them sharing white papers here. They are actually tracking those that will vote for them, that will bring back that coupon and then get paid for it. This is appalling and not acceptable, in electoral process. If we must have this democracy as we expect, then we must invest on the integrity of the process. Okay. The integrity of the process, yes.
Let's talk about provision of amenities for our voters who have disabilities. What have you observed, you know, in terms of this?
Now, we've gone around to a number of polling units, quite many of them, and we found out that many polling units don't have the provision. What makes us a bit hopeful and glad is the fact that many of the ad hoc staff that we have interviewed actually confirmed that they are aware of priority voting given to persons with disability. And we have just seen a person with disability who actually received that priority provision, and he voted and left for his home. However, it is completely unacceptable, taking into consideration the level of work we've done, the kind of provision we have and support we have given to INEC, that we are still crying about not having the inclusivity resources in an electoral process like this is something that really beats my imagination. I think we need to also go back to drawing board and invest in data. If we are able to get the accurate data of voters with disability, then we will then advise INEC how to distribute these scarce resources to make sure it gets to the people who needs it. I haven't seen one single magnifying glasses, not one. And that is one thing that I personally advocated for and supported INEC to procure. This is an off-cycle election, but there's no reason why there will be no complete and adequate deployment of magnifying glasses where persons with albinisms are. It's not acceptable, and it's something that we need to continue to engage INEC and to ensure that these provisions are made available for people who need it.
Okay, let's talk about security. You know, you represent people living with disability. What kind of relationship have you observed between security operatives serving in this election and people living with disability?
I think it's cordial. I have been accorded, maybe because I have a little influence, but I've been accorded with great respect by the security operatives, you know. But like you rightly said, do we need the number of security personnel that is deployed for elections like this? I would say no. And I think I want to use this opportunity that it's time for us to hold the security agencies accountable. Let them tell us these numbers that they are claiming that they deploy. We need evidence to show that indeed they deployed these numbers, because every number they deploy takes toll on the taxpayers' money. They have to be paid, allowances have to be paid and all that. So we need to know how many indeed were deployed as to verify the claims. In Edo, we have 35,000. In Ondo, we are hearing 30,000. And at the end of the day, and in some police stations, we saw more security personnel than voters themselves. you know. So it's a problem. And I think also it's important to underscore the need for special attention to also be given to our colleagues in the media practitioners. We don't want any camera seized. We don't want any journalists harassed. We want the political class to allow them to do the job, because we depend on you to get the information that we need in this whole process. So no journalist must be intimidated.
So what do you expect to see at the end of this exercise before we bring this to a close?
Well, I think the best should win, irrespective of the political party. I think the onus is on the winner to provide the dividends of democracy, to provide leadership. This community and Nigerians in general requires a leader who is responsible, who is responsive, who is willing to serve the people and develop the rural area. We are in Akure. Who knows what is happening in the rural area? Who knows what is happening in the riverine area of this state? And this state has a huge potential. I believe that the winner must invest in human capital development, must invest in education, must invest in healthcare, quality healthcare. This takes impact on the most vulnerable. And this is what we expect from whoever wins this election. And we expect INEC to do the needful and call the result on time, so that we don't propagate any form of tension. There's been peace. We've seen peaceful atmosphere around this electoral process. And hopefully it's the same thing that we expect in the hinterland. The hinterland is of interest to me. So the issue of vote buying is still there.
All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Jacob Willie. Thank you for your time and your thought. So, Ruth, you listened to him, and you heard what he has to say about what they have observed about this election so far. Back to you, Ruth.
So much, Oba. You'll be right back at you.
In Nigerian politics, family ties, they can play a huge role.
Yeah.
You have to wonder if maybe Dr. Mimiko is banking on his brother's legacy to win over some voters.
Right.
Or maybe there's some behind-the-scenes agreements happening between the state and the federal governments. Remember, in Nigeria, the federal government has a lot of power, especially when it comes to resources. So for a state-level candidate to invoke the president's name like this, it's definitely a power move.
So it's not just about family ties. It's a calculated political strategy that makes his statement even more interesting. But do you think voters will buy it?
I mean, is it normal for a candidate to rely on the president's neutrality like this?
Yeah.
Especially in a state election?
That's the million-dollar question. Nigerian voters, they're pretty savvy. They've seen it all.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Mimiko is walking a tightrope here, on one hand. He wants to project confidence in Tinubu, to maybe get federal support and resources.
Right.
But he can't appear too close to the federal government either. Voters in Ondo State, they want to know he'll prioritize their needs.
Right.
They don't want him to just be a puppet for Abuja.
So he's trying to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah, basically.
That's risky. Okay, so we've got this confidence in the president. But Dr. Mimiko also gets real about something else. Government allocations. And the lack of development, he says. Allocations are doubled, but they are not translating into meaningful development. Does that sound familiar based on what you know about Nigeria?
Absolutely. That's a major issue in Nigeria. There's always this debate about corruption, mismanagement of public funds.
Yeah.
And Dr. Mimiko says that he's hitting a nerve with voters.
Right.
They're tired of all talk and no action.
So this could really influence how people vote. Like, are they looking for someone who can actually deliver, who can bridge the gap between allocations and actual development?
Exactly. This election is about more than just personalities. It's about real issues. People want to see improvements in their lives.
Yeah.
If a candidate can convince them, they're the one to make that happen. They have a real chance.
Okay, so we've got political strategy with the Tinubu name drop and concerns about actual governance and development. This is getting interesting. But the article also introduces us to someone who brings it all back down to earth. Mr. Olu Akinbadun.
Ah, yes. Mr. Akinbadun, the 85-year-old voter. That's dedication.
Right. He's out there on election day, ready to cast his vote. It makes you think about what he's seen during his life when it comes to Nigerian politics.
Yeah. I bet he's seen a lot of the ups and downs, the promises, the disappointments.
Right.
His commitment to voting is really inspiring.
Yeah, it shows that. Even with Nigeria's complex political history, people still believe in the power of their vote.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He's like he represents this enduring hope for a better Nigeria.
I think you're right.
It's a powerful image.
What?
The article mentions a problem with Mr. Akinbudan's story, doesn't it?
Yeah. It talks about how late the election officials were at his polling stations.
Oh, right.
And Mr. Akinbudan actually points out that this lack of punctuality could discourage people from voting, especially older voters.
Yeah.
Who can't wait around for hours.
It's kind of heartbreaking. It's like even when you're trying to make your voice heard, the system itself is working against you. And this isn't just about inconvenience.
Yeah.
This connects back to what Dr. Mimiko was talking about effective governance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If the government can't even organize a basic election, how can people trust them with more complex issues like development and resource allocation?
Right.
It makes you wonder if these issues are intentional.
Whoa. You think it could be a conspiracy?
Well, maybe not a conspiracy, but it definitely raises questions about the government's competence.
It makes you think about how fragile democracy can be, especially in a place like Nigeria. You have people like Mr. Akinbudan who are so dedicated to participating, but then the system lets them down.
It's a tough situation. And it's not just limited to Nigeria.
Right.
Every democracy faces these kinds of challenges. Voter apathy.
Yeah.
Logistical problems, even manipulation.
Yeah.
Moments like this, with Mr. Akinbudan patiently waiting to vote, they remind us why it's all worth fighting for.
They remind us that every vote matters.
Exactly.
Okay. So zooming out a bit, we have this election in Ondo State. But what does it tell us about Nigeria as a whole? Are we seeing these same themes playing out across the country?
That's the big question. I think Ondo State could be a microcosm of what's happening nationally.
Oh, so?
Well, think about it. We're seeing political maneuvering with the whole Tinubu connection.
Yeah.
We're seeing frustration with the government, not fulfilling its promises. We're seeing the everyday struggles of people trying to participate in the democratic process.
It's like this one election is giving us a glimpse into the heart of Nigerian politics. So, if we were to describe the current political climate, what would you say?
I'd say there's definitely a lot of uncertainty and skepticism. People are questioning whether their votes really matter, whether the system is rigged against them.
That makes sense.
But I think there's also a glimmer of hope.
Hope? Where are you seeing that?
Well, I see it in people like Mr. Akinbudan, who still show up to vote, despite the challenges, and see it in candidates like Dr. Mimiko, who are at least talking about the issues. They're bringing these problems to the forefront.
So even though there's frustration and doubt, there's still this belief that things could get better.
Yeah, that belief is what keeps democracy alive.
Yeah, it's a reminder that change takes time, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes people who are willing to hold their leaders accountable.
Exactly. And speaking of accountability, let's bring it back to this election. In Ondo State, we've talked about the candidates, the issues, and the voters. But what's the big takeaway here? What does the outcome of this election mean for the state? And maybe even for Nigeria?
Okay. Let's pretend we can predict the future for a second. If you had to make a guess about the future of Ondo State, based on what we've learned from this election, what would you say?
Well, I think Ondo State is at a crossroads right now. People are ready for change. They're tired of empty promises.
So they're looking for someone who can actually deliver, who can actually make things happen.
Exactly. And that's what makes this election so important.
Yeah.
It's a test to see if the political system can actually work for the people.
So it's not just about who wins, it's about what they do after they win. Like, will they actually address these issues? About development, about government transparency, about making sure things run smoothly so people like Mr. Akinbudan don't have to wait hours to vote.
Exactly. The real work starts after the election, and everyone will be watching Ondo State to see what happens next.
It sounds like this one election has become a symbol for something much bigger, a symbol of the hopes and the struggles of democracy in Nigeria.
I think that's a good way to put it. It reminds us that democracy is a process.
Yeah.
It's not just about elections. It's about what happens between those elections.
Yeah.
It's about holding our leaders accountable, having conversations, making sure our voices are heard.
So what does all of this mean for our listeners? If you were a voter in Ondo State, what would be the biggest takeaway from this deep dive?
I'd say the most important thing to remember is that your vote matters. Every single vote has the power to shape the future.
Yeah.
And it's not just about choosing a candidate, it's about choosing what kind of future you want. For your community, for your state, for your country.
It's about taking ownership of the future you want to see.
Exactly.
That's a really powerful message. It's a good reminder that democracy is a journey, not a destination. And we're all on this journey together, trying to create a better future, one step at a time. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious. And never stop questioning the world around you